The new Black Clover chapter revealed crazy things, and today we are going to show you this new character from a perspective you might not have thought of. What if he's not good? A few of our predictions have come true, but two very important ones in particular. One was that we assumed the possibility that the person who found Asta on the beach might be related to Yami, which now seems to be the case, regardless of what this person named Ryuudou claims to be and what relationship he claims to have with Yami. The second thing is that we have said that this person will have something to do with time magic. And just as we predicted, this person can indeed see the future, perhaps even the past, and definitely at least the present. But we also told you that if this prediction comes true and this person really has something to do with time magic, we have no choice but to give this person the full Julius Novachrono conspiracy treatment. The moment he said he can see things, he is a prime suspect, maybe even the mastermind who is even above Lucius Zogratis. It doesn't have to be the case, but you will see why it could be the case. If you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video. Let's go! The new Black Clover Chapter 337 starts with Nacht confronting the Black Bulls with a harsh reality. Asta may be dead. But neither Nacht nor the Black Bulls have the slightest doubt that Asta is still alive. The energy of this scene gives us the impression that the Black Bulls are not just saying, yes, he's alive, but rather like, okay, let's find him, let's save him, let's do something. There's no way they're just going to sit around and do nothing. The problem is that Nacht knows that if Asta is alive, he's either in another dimension or another continent. So it depends on what he thinks is more likely, which could then determine what the Black Bulls are going to do if they really want to go after Asta. Of course, they could also believe that Asta will return when the time comes, simply because they have confidence in Asta. So it could be that it is not even necessary for them to look for Asta because they know that Asta is fine and he knows that he has to return. So he will do so in time. That's just the way Asta is. In this case, of course, their action will have something to do with protecting the world from Lucius Zogratis. They will do their best to keep things safe until Asta is finally back. However, here it is very important to note that two Black Bull members are missing. First, Yami, who may have something to do with the captains, maybe another meeting or whatever. Or maybe Yami understands that if Asta could be on another continent, it could very well be the land of the rising sun because, as we have explained many times, it is literally the only known continent besides the continent of the Four Kingdoms. So it's only natural that Yami might try to look for Asta in his home country. Of all the people in the room who heard what Nacht said, Yami should be the person who had the idea of where Asta might be if he is not dead and not in another dimension, the land of the rising sun. Also, Noelle Silva is also missing, and that is much stranger than the fact that Yami is missing. Noelle didn't show that she had a contract with the water spirit Undine when she attacked Beelzebub Lily, so we can assume that the reason why she is missing now is that she wants to use the contract she made with Undine again. If you follow our videos, you know that we think it's possible that she might even make a contract with the Grimoire of the Heart Kingdom, while this Grimoire is not different from her water magic, so it doesn't give her any additional abilities. It does contain a lot of spells that have been collected over 1,000 years by Queens of the Heart Kingdom. Noelle has absolutely all the requirements to obtain this grimoire, if this grimoire is not tied to the genetics of the Heart Kingdom citizen, so keep this possibility in mind as well. The scene changes to Asta waking up in a Japanese dojo. Now more than ever, it's obvious that this is the land of the rising sun, as we predicted in last review and also many times before the time skip. And then we finally see who the mysterious person was who confronted Asta at the beach of the land of the rising sun when Asta was on the verge of death. And it's Yami! Nah, just kidding, but this guy looks very much like Yami, that's an indisputable fact. In our last video we mentioned two things. First, we believe that this person could very likely be related to Yami and may even be his brother. And secondly, we said that because of the circumstances in which he met Asta, he might also have something to do with time magic. Some kind of ability to see things, whether it's prophecies or time itself. And this chapter has hinted at the possibility of both of our predictions coming true. So far it's very close to be confirmed, just not quite confirmed yet. Let's talk about it in detail. Obviously, this person looks like Yami, so we assume it could be his brother, due to the fact that he should be pretty much the same age. Of course, if Asta didn't end up in the future or something, but that's a topic for another video. So brother makes the most sense unless he has some ability to keep himself young. For example, if he actually has something to do with Astaroth, then of course it doesn't have to be his brother. It could be even his father or maybe his uncle. Anything really. So unless all the men from the land of the rising sun look identical, which would be weird. He pretty much has to be Yami's relative, even if he doesn't confirm it and acts like they are just childhood friends, which is odd because why would he lie? The fact that he might be lying about them being related might actually be important for some reason. Anyways, the fact that they are actually related is pretty much confirmed because Asta said that their ki feels very similar, so there should be no doubt about it. And I'm just saying, the way Tabata loves to do things, he would even make them twins, but let's see, it's not that important right now. Asta wonders why he was healed when Mimosa is not around, and the wound was definitely fatal, so normal healing magic probably wouldn't have worked on Asta, which is why he specifically thought of Mimosa, since she has this all healing magic. The fact that Asta was healed in a very short time contradicts our idea that there could be no magic or mana in the land of the rising sun. How else could they have healed Asta if not with magic? But I would like to point out something very interesting here. When healing magic is used, the healed injuries usually leaves no scars. Healing magic that heals instantly removes absolutely everything. Take for example the hole in Yami's chest. After Mimosa healed Yami, the chest was completely free from any kind of injury. They healed the structure of the tissues itself, resulting in clean skin. Here, however, Asta has a scar, and as far as I know, we've never seen anything like it. If healing magic were used, the injury would be closed, and thus the process of scarring wouldn't happen in the first place, at least not if it was a total healing. Of course, Asta already has many scars since most of the healing magic used on Asta so far only healed Asta's injuries to the point that they were no longer fatal. Nevertheless, a scar must develop over time. This is clearly not the case here. The injury is completely healed and the scar is fully formed. Healing magic does not form scars, it only closes the injury, which could then result in a scar over time, or removes it completely. This raises the possibility that this was not the result of magic, which could strengthen our belief that the land of the rising sun does not actually possess magic, but uses other ways to solve such problems. For example, advanced medicine. Or if it is magic, then this magic has nothing to do with direct healing, but for example with time magic that speeds up the process of natural healing, hence the scar on Asta's chest. Of course, a scar also speaks to the idea that Asta is in the future for whatever reason, but as I said, that is a topic for another video if we get more evidence for that idea. Now let's talk a bit more in depth about the new character that was introduced and why this person might not be trusted. Here it's important to mention that the fact that he has time magic abilities doesn't necessarily mean that he is evil and is working with Lucius Zogratis, but it definitely opens that possibility and it's not even unlikely. Therefore, this issue must be addressed and analyzed very carefully until we have enough clues about his true purpose. All this, of course, depends on why he can see the future. If it's magic, then of course we have to consider the Time Devil. But if it's an advanced key, then maybe that's a unique ability that only he has. Maybe each person has their own unique key ability, kind of like ultimate magic but for key. Today we just assume it's magic. This person's name is Ryuuya, at least in the leaks, which basically means something to do with a dragon. Considering that the name Yami means darkness and therefore he has received dark magic, this person's magic or ability could have something to do with a dragon. I am not necessarily saying it is dragon magic until we have 100% confirmation that the people of the land of the rising sun actually use magic in the same way as people of the continent of the four kingdoms. We did not see any grimoire on Ryuudou or the girl we saw, although it is usually common for people who use magic to carry their grimoire with them all the time and in all places, especially if these people are part of the military, so very unusual. But here we see clearly that both of them always carry their katana, which could be the first indication that maybe in the land of the rising sun there are simply no grimoires, but instead there are katanas. So it is quite possible that the concept of magic as we know it does not exist in the land of the rising sun. Perhaps the katana is the equivalent of a grimoire. Maybe their katana have some sort of individual ability. And the only reason Yami's katana doesn't have magic is because he was too young at the time to receive his own magic katana and then later for some reason received the Clover grimoire instead. My partner will now continue this video. Have fun.
What worries me is not that we don't see any grimoires on people we have seen so far, but also that it appears that Asta's grimoire has been taken away as well. Something that would definitely not be done where he comes from. A grimoire is one of the most important and the most valuable things not only for the magic knights but for all people who have a grimoire. It's their job security, it's their protection, it's literally connected to their soul. Taking away someone's grimoire and not putting it near them makes me feel very strange. And this strange feeling is reinforced by the fact that not only Asta's grimoire seems to be missing, but also his devil Libe. Here, however, Ryuudou mentions that Libe is currently being healed by one of his friends, which could be the case of course, but then we have to wonder why. From a mangaka's point of view, what sense does it make to have Libe healed by someone else instead of just having both Asta and Libe already healed in the same room? What does the fact that Asta and Libe were separated mean for the plot? Imagine if Libe walks into the room completely healed and that was that. It would be just unnecessary if there was no meaning behind it. Of course, the meaning of this could really be anything, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something bad. But given that we're already suspecting the possibility that all of this might not be as good for Asta as it seems, especially with the suggestion that time magic might be involved and that Asta's grimoire might be missing, then we definitely have to consider that Libe might not be doing so well right now and could be used for a specific purpose. Let's not make the mistake of blindly trusting everything we see. If Black Clover has taught us one thing, it is that no one should be trusted, no matter how trustworthy that person seems to be. But more on that in a moment when we talk more about time magic and Ryuudou. Speaking of Ryuudou, apparently his title is Shogun. A Shogun was a title of military leaders in Japan, so it looks like he's the equivalent of the Wizard King in the Clover Kingdom, the leader of the military in the land of the rising sun, so he's definitely a very big name in his country. The interesting thing about Ryuudou is how well informed he is. He speaks the language of the continent of the four kingdoms, although Yami had to learn that language first. He even knows Asta by name. He knows what's going on in the Clover Kingdom and basically everything a person with time magic would know, which is very strange indeed. When Asta wonders how he knows all this, Ryuudou points to his eye and says that he just has to want to see things to see them, which suggests that his ability has something to do with his eye, and logically, possibly something to do with time magic. Sometimes the most obvious thing is what we tend to overlook. So why is Ryuudou covering his eye? Of course, there's a possibility that his eye just looks weird, which is why he's covering it. Or maybe it has an ability which forces him to cover that eye as long as he doesn't use that specific ability. However, it is also possible that he covers the eye for the same reason that Asta covers his arm. Asta made a pact with Libe and received the anti-magic arm in return, so it could be that Ryuudou might have made such a pact with the devil as well, gaining the ability to see in the future by receiving that devil's eye. And the only devil known to be able to see into the future is Astaroth. We use exactly the same logic as Damnatio when he exposed Julius Novachrono. The only known being that can use time magic is Astaroth. So we have to at least assume that Ryuudou made a pact with the time devil Astaroth in exchange for his eye. And of course, that complicates everything a lot more, because that means we don't even know if he is good or evil anymore, because this gives us a possible connection between him and Lucius. Let me explain how and why this connection is so much more dangerous than it appears. Remember that since the beginning of the Julius Novachrono traitor theory, the main reason we suspected him of being in contact with the devil Astaroth is that Julius Novachrono was the person who picked up Yami and William, who later became the sources of the Clifford ritual. It was so obvious that there was just no way it was just a coincidence. And so it turned out that it was Lucius who had planned it all from the beginning. But Lucius's control only reached the Clover Kingdom. He could have no way to make sure that Yami would find his way from the land of the rising sun to the Clover Kingdom unless he had someone in the land of the rising sun to help him. And it's a fact that we are now introduced to a character who seems to have time magic abilities, and with that we just have to assume that he could be in contact with Lucius Zogratis, and all of this is part of their plan. With that in mind, it makes a lot more sense why Lucius didn't kill Asta, but just gave him a very precise cut so that Asta was mortally wounded but didn't die. And with this explanation, we don't have to find a reason why Beelzebub Lily teleported Asta to the land of the rising sun, because in this context, it was always planned to happen just like that. Because Lucius could work together with Ryuudou, or maybe even for him. Maybe Ryuudou is and always was the main villain. Asta was supposed to end up with Ryuudou because Lucius planned to send Asta to the land of the rising sun, just as Ryuudou might have sent Yami to the Clover Kingdom so that Lucius could use him as a source for the Clifford ritual. Maybe this is some kind of exchange. Maybe Ryuudou needs Asta in the same way that Lucius needed Yami for some reason. Or maybe it's all part of the same plan. There are many possibilities. So let's just keep the possibility of a traitor in mind. We will definitely do a separate video on this topic. There's a lot to talk about. For the rest of the video, let's assume that Ryuudou is not evil, and the reason why he might have sent Yami to the Clover Kingdom, if he has anything to do with it at all, is that he knew that this timeline had to be created in order to create the best possible future, despite how much Yami will suffer in this timeline. This would of course explain why Ryuudou, even though he can see time, didn't come to the rescue, because he knew that Yami would be saved, and as I said, it's the best timeline. That's why he knew that Asta would come to the land of the rising sun, if everything went according to his visions. We know that there is no clear future in Black Clover, but that that there are tens of thousands of different timelines that can occur at any time depending on the current events that are responsible for which of the timeline occurs. Thus, people who have the ability to see the future also have the ability to accurately determine the future, at least when it comes to following a specific timeline. This is what Lucius is doing right now. He tries to get rid of Yuno to close the only timeline in which he can lose. So maybe Ryuudou chose a specific timeline that led to Asta ending up in the land of the rising sun. That way Lucius would have seen Yami arrive at the Clover Kingdom but didn't know why this happened and might not even bother to investigate. All he cared about was the fact that Yami was there, and not that there might be someone with the ability to see the future himself and put Lucius on the trial of that timeline to eventually defeat him. It's possible that Ryuudou is actually the one who put Lucius on the wrong track so that Asta can defeat him one day. If Ryuudou is good and has been waiting all these years for this moment, then Asta's training is obviously real, and Ryuudou will now prepare Asta to defeat Lucius so that the future he saw will be completely fulfilled. The reason why Asta was separated from Liebe and his grimoire could be because the techniques from the land of the rising sun that Asta is supposed to learn requires him to be completely powerless and focus only on pure ki or whatever the land of the rising sun does for combat. As we said, we suspect that there might be something like a grimoire ceremony, but for katanas. So maybe Asta will get his own katana with special abilities. That's definitely possible. And who knows, maybe Asta will even get a legendary katana. Take for example the two katanas in the background of the scene we see in the dojo. Maybe one of them will be given to Asta as a gift for his training and the mastery of the art of ki. Liebe in the meantime may have to do his own training, depending on what the land of the rising sun has to offer for Liebe as a devil. And considering that Ryuudou himself uses the power of a devil, Asta and Liebe might even participate in a training where they learn to use the full potential of a devil union mode, and maybe even unleash the full potential of anti-magic. It all depends on what Ryuudou is truly capable of. And that's about it. There are still a few small ideas to mention, like how the girl also looks like she could be Yami's little sister, so there's a possibility that Asta basically ended up in Yami's house. Or maybe she's Ryuudou's daughter. That would mean that Yami is her uncle if Ryuudou is his brother. I can very well imagine that this girl is a tsundere and that although Ryuudou will teach Asta, the girl will be the training partner for Asta. And then of course, it wouldn't be Black Clover if she didn't have a crush on Asta like everyone always does. And the last thing which I want to mention, which remains just an idea for now, is that Ryuudou will give Asta his eye so that Asta can then use the same ability. Maybe Astaroth even gave Ryuudou that eye so that one day he can give it to Asta. It would be great if Asta would get a small part of Astaroth's devil magic, if this indeed is Astaroth's devil eye. It would be even nicer if it turns out that Astaroth is actually Asta's father and left this power to Asta as a final gift. With this, Asta would then be able to predict the movements of his enemies. It wouldn't be too crazy, but still something that would be very helpful in battle. Everything else will be discussed in the next video, where we'll go really deep into this topic. So don't forget to subscribe with the notification bell turned on. That's it for today folks. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to smash the like button, and if you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe with the notification bell turned on. See you guys in the next video. Yami out.